Hi, everyone. It is February 2nd, 2019. This incredibly cute, sweet, innocent boy in Texas, 6 years old, is James when he's with his father. He is Luna when he's with his mother, a pediatrician in Texas. A pediatrician mother who has determined that her son is a girl, enrolled him in school as a girl, dresses him as a girl, but when he goes to visit his father, he's a boy. And based on the research that I've done and the information that I have, when he goes to visit his father, well, he has the choice between dressing as a girl or dressing as a boy, and he chooses to dress as a boy. And he's called James. A whole lot of adults are now involved in this case because the pediatrician mother actually wants to chemically castrate this boy. And unbelievably, the law states that parents can do that to their children when their children reach the age of 8. 8, they can chemically castrate their male children. When you have laws like this, you know your society is done with. It's gone. And it is descending into something so incredibly sick, twisted, disturbed, and evil. And we're seeing it, we're living it, the rapidity with which this has become accepted, and the rapidity with which good becomes evil and evil becomes good has been head spinning, has been truly scary, because now you walk around, you're not even sure if you meet up with other people and you voice your opinion about something, you don't know if you're going to be attacked for having your own personal opinion about, well, in this case, this transgenderism agenda that is taking place. Whereas before, you were able to voice your opinion because it was an opinion that was shared by, the majority of our public. Abuse of children is not okay. Emotional, sexual, or physical abuse is not okay, but it's become okay. And if you don't see what you're about to see in this video when I'm reading some of the articles, and if you don't see this as abuse, then something is very, very wrong with you. Very wrong with you. And I hope that you don't have children yourself. But let's listen to the father of James. And I have to hand it to him because I would not be able to remain calm.
I want you to imagine having electronic communication with your son on FaceTime. And imagine that your ex-wife has dressed him as a drag queen to talk to you. He has false eyelashes and makeup. His hair's got glitter in it. He's wearing a dress. Now, imagine how you would feel seeing what I believe is actual sexual abuse. I believe this is not just emotional abuse, but is the very most fundamental form of sexual abuse, tampering with the sexual identity of a vulnerable boy. Every single day, you have to see your son sexually abused, and you have to maintain your calm. You have to be the one who's calm, because the courts are not going to be fair to you. And the only way you can survive this and get your son through this alive is to calmly allow your son to be tortured right before your eyes and outlast the opposition. That's what it's like.
Well, okay, so um, 10 years ago, even just 10 years ago, all of what you just heard from this father, the great majority of Americans would be horrified by what he has to endure. Now he is perceived to be on the wrong side. So I just want you to listen to Camille Paglia, who is a professor, an out lesbian, a feminist of the firstborn feminist in our country, the sane, rational, reasonable feminist, not like the feminists that we have today. Well, Camille had come out in, I think, the late 60s. She has always had, a warrior spirit, considers herself to be between the genders. I don't know if she actually classifies herself as a transgender, but she does, state that she's a lesbian. And she has a very different take on what has now manifested with the gay and with the whole homosexual movement, the transgender agenda, and the feminist movement. She is very much opposed to what is now taking place, and was attacked. And the gay and lesbian community and the feminists tried to destroy her because she has a very different view of homosexuality, doesn't believe that anybody is born homosexual, and she's very reasonable. She's very thoughtful, very smart, considered an intellectual, and I have to say that pretty much everything that this woman says, I agree with. I want you to listen to her because there's an awful lot of people who still believe that every gay and lesbian and transgender person they're all 100%, in agreement with everything that's taking place. They are not. You just don't hear the opposition voice all that much. So I am presenting to you the opposition voice.
I say in the introduction to my new book, my new collection, my particular transgender rebellion came at a time when there wasn't these ideas in the air that the moment you are dissatisfied with the limitations of your present gender definition, that there is this enormous mechanism waiting to alter your body, to halt puberty, to slow your puberty down, to people, all very well-meaning and very sympathetic, are there to provide surgical intervention and potential, permanent changes in your body with which there's no going back. Okay? For me, a sex change operation opens one door but closes many others. Right? So I personally believe that anyone who collaborates in an intrusion into a developing child's body and mind is guilty of child abuse, a crime against humanity, okay, because that child is not prepared to make such a decision, okay. I think that such decisions about sex reassignment surgery must wait when one attains a majority, which would be, it seems to me, a minimum of age 18. I'm very concerned with this because I think that it's become a fashion, okay, that the transgender definition has become a kind of convenient label for young people who may simply feel alienated, okay, culturally for many other reasons, okay. So that in the 1950s they might have become a beatnik, in the 1960s they might have become a hippie and taken mind-expanding drugs, okay. And so today you're encouraged to think that it's an alienation is because you're not totally defined, identifying with your particular inherited gender definition. So I'm very concerned about this. I think that a lot of it, I think that the collaboration of the bureaucratic machinery with it has to do with the assault on masculinity. Okay. Okay. So you see, gender doesn't really exist. It's not really polarity. I mean, everything's all about expanding women's rights, but also terminating men. Okay, and defining men out of existence. Masculinity is by definition toxic. Okay, masculinity doesn't exist. And you see, this is the proof of it. And now I began all my studies. My book Sexual Personae began as a dissertation at Yale graduate school on androgyny. I've always been fascinated, attracted, to the subject of androgyny, and that's what sexual personae is. I explored it in history. But the more I explored it, I realized that that historically, the movement toward androgyny occurs in late phases of culture. Okay, as a civilization is starting to unravel. Okay,
And we are rapidly unraveling now. So I will link below to everything if you want to listen to the last couple of minutes of Camille talking about this transgender agenda. Click on the link below. She has a lot of very good things to say, rational, reasonable, level-headed, unlike what we are seeing today, unlike what we are, unfortunately, what we can now expect to engage in conversation with our fellow Americans. Everything has just become utterly, utterly, utterly insane, abusively so. So, James. Oh my God, 6-year-old boy forced to live as a girl while mom threatens dad for not going along. I want to get a picture of this mother. Wait. Here she is. She's a practicing pediatrician in Texas. And she's all about taking good care of children. This is so frightening. But I want to get to a picture of her. I thought that was going to stay, that picture. Something's very, very, very seriously wrong with this one. This is she, and something's very. She's very disturbed. She's truly very disturbed. I mean, and unfortunately, she has a mother of 4, 2 teenagers and 2 young children. James has a twin brother that apparently is being left alone. But James, this woman, has, I think at the ripe old age of 3, she started dressing him as a girl. I would never take my child to this pediatrician. She needs help. She is seriously deranged, and she is severely abusing her children. All of them get abused by this. They're living with some deranged woman who clearly does not know how to parent and is forcing her young son to be a girl. And then is gung-ho. She's a pediatrician. She is gung-ho with chemically castrating her boy at the age of 8. Now, in this article, and I'll post below to this article, there are a lot of articles on it. New American, a very good article, father fighting to save 6-year-old son from gender reassignment. And yeah, process begins at age 8. Something is very wrong with the society that has a law that permits parents to permanently alter their children when the children don't have a choice. You're permanently altering that child's development, allowing the parent to permanently alter what was the child's natural process. You're allowing that mother to determine, you're allowing the parent to determine that child's life. And nothing could be more fundamental than one's gender, sex, but I'm so horrified that there is actually public acceptance of this, horrified to see attorneys and judges and, yes, a transition therapist all gung-ho to permanently alter a 6-year-old boy just because the mother has said, my boy is a girl. So, yeah, there's medical and psychological risks to children associated with so-called gender transitioning. The case has implications for parental rights related to religious freedom, freedom of speech, and due process, and a child's right to not be abused. So, Anne Georgoulis, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, so we'll call her Anne. That's the father. Her ex-husband, who you saw in that interview, he's having to endure this, fighting to save his child. And this is not dramatic, by saying save his child from the abuse. That's exactly what is taking place. And 10 years ago, adults in our country would have been right there with it, but something so dark has taken place in the American psyche that now there are so many who are right with this, supporting the mother. So Anne has charged her ex-husband, James's father, with child abuse for not affirming their son as a transgender girl. He's 6 years old. You do not affirm anything. You just allow the child to develop naturally. Anne, as a pediatrician, should understand this, but she doesn't. She's a control freak and has decided that James is a product, like you buy at a store. And she gets to use that product however she wants to. She is an abusive, controlling, deranged mother. This is not healthy. And anybody who brings their child to her, man, wow, you in Texas, you really need to understand who you are going to here. This Anne pediatrician. She also sought restraining orders against Younger, her ex-husband. She's trying to terminate his parental rights, and he is the healthy parent who James desperately needs in order to not be, put through this. Think about this 6-year-old boy. He's allowed to be who he is at his father's, or whoever he chooses to be at his father's. At his mother's, that this whole boy is being snuffed out by the mother. I don't want you as you are, so I'm going to change you. Do you know what that does to a child? I'm going to make you of my liking because I don't like who you are naturally. Pediatrician, took James for counseling. She picked a gender transition therapist who diagnosed him with gender dysphoria. Walt Hare, a former transgender and advocate for those experiencing sex change regret, notes in an article that James does not fit the criteria for the condition. And he's not alone. Other professionals have said he does not fit the criteria for that diagnosis because the criteria, a child must be persistent, consistent, and insistent about being the opposite sex. And he is not. James is not. James's mother is all in on socially transitioning the boy, but James exhibits no signs of gender dysphoria when with his father or others, choosing to dress and live as a boy. The fact that James changes gender identity depending on which parent is present, it means James is already hardwired to seek love because clearly it's conditional from the mother. I can't speak too much about the father because I don't know, too much about that environment. Based on what the research that I've gathered is that James is allowed to choose between dressing as a girl or dressing as a boy, and he chooses to dress as a boy. Okay, so based on that information that I have, picked up, certainly his father is the more healthy parent. But, to subject a 6-year-old to this, it is such emotional, psychological, and physical because you're altering, this child's, you're going to be altering their hormones. You're dressing this child, well, based on he choosing to dress as a boy at his father's, clearly dressing him as a girl is against what he chooses. You enroll him in school as a girl, so all of the adults around him are treating him like a girl. Oh my God, this is so traumatizing and so hard to speak to because it is, well, when you know that the American adult, on the whole, the collective, have gone utterly insane and can't even protect children anymore. They shouldn't be around children. How do you advocate for a child who's being abused when suddenly you then are attacked and called the abuser? That's what's happening here. That's what happens when your society becomes so sick and twisted and diseased that it's overwhelming and you don't even know how to address much of anything anymore. All of these adults involved on the mother's side is that they are all complicit, or they are adults who are directly damaging this child, abusing this child, the teachers treating him as a girl, this therapist, gender transition therapist, has not changed her diagnosis in the face of so much evidence that James does not fit the criteria for the diagnosis. This therapist, who is supposed to be taking the child's, best interest at heart, no, she's taking her own ego at heart. She's got an agenda. And generally with adults, I'm protecting my ego. I don't give a shit about James. So I'm not changing my diagnosis. I was right. I was right. I was right. So she's just as abusive. You know, I'm horrified by what we are living. You see this kid, and he's like, you just want to pinch his cheeks, you know? You're born into this world. And yeah, even still today, there are opportunities for the child that is just born. Opportunities await you. Life, boy, girl. But then you get adults who rob children of their opportunities. And you break their psyche. It's so traumatizing. And wow, you're set on a trajectory to become an adult where you're just so filled with so much baggage. And then as an adult, you're told to shut up about it. Shut up. We don't want to hear it. Oh, you're just a victim. Oh, you're this, you're that. It completely destroys life and how it was meant to be. Yeah, it's very upsetting to see this. So this transition therapist refuses to change the diagnosis, even with the glaring disparity between a child's preferred identity in the presence. I'm sorry, glaring disparity between a child's preferred identity when in the presence of one parent versus the other. Oh my God, 6 years old, and this is what's happening to this child. Well, clearly, this child has been robbed of a stable home. Versus the other should cause a therapist to reassess, perhaps nullify the diagnosis of gender dysphoria and terminate any steps toward transition, but it's not happening. Why is it not happening? Because these adults don't give a shit about James. They only care about themselves. And when you are a society filled with an awful lot of adults who are walking that low road and only thinking about themselves, their little life. Oh, they claim to care so much about others and children. Oh, I'm a therapist. I'm a gender transition therapist. Of course I care about children. Then you should have already changed the diagnosis, sweetie. But if you were a healthy adult, you would never have diagnosed this child with gender dysphoria in the first place. If the mother had even just a tad bit of health, she would not be doing what she's doing. Michelle Cretella, executive director of the American College of Pediatricians, also stated that James does not fit this diagnosis of gender dysphoria. The child is called Luna when with the mother. James, oh my God. James's precious young life hinges purely on a diagnosis of gender dysphoria by a therapist who wraps herself in rainbow colors, affirms the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, and dismisses evidence to the contrary. This therapist should have her license revoked. The pediatrician should have her license revoked, and she needs psychiatric help fast. Um, to be in long-term therapy because something's very wrong with her. Here, some mothers who force their sons to impersonate girls suffer from gender mourning. Okay, never heard that term, but world-renowned experts in the treatment of childhood gender identity disorders described encountering some mothers who so desperately wanted a girl that they entered a profound state of depression after bearing only sons. I don't know what the other, her teenage children, what their sex are. Um, so I don't even know if that's what's happening here. But the adults, if a mother falls into this, right, the adults that are in her life should be behaving in ways to counter what that mother wants to do. They should be protecting the child and getting that mother help. Unfortunately, that's not what adults do, because they're scared, they don't have courage, they lack a moral core themselves. So we have an awful lot of children who are not protected at all, even though they are living in what looks like a stable American home. They are so not protected at all. They're coming out of homes that are that have a range of dysfunction from severe to mild, but then they enter public schools and they're being so damaged by Wi-Fi and the indoctrination of Common Core. And, what they are seeing is a society that is utterly insane, with no adults protecting them from it. And whether they realize that consciously or subconsciously, I do think that a lot of teenagers especially feel that they are entering something that really gives them no hope. And well, it could be a reason why teen suicide is the highest it's ever been. So apparently this gender mourning, the mother's depression, well, it's alleviated only by one son acting in a effeminate manner or allowing her to dress him as a girl. So that's a mother who's very disturbed. And that child needs adults to protect him from that mother. But here we have this child who is so caught up between all of these adults, this drama going on, and those on the wife's side, this pediatrician who, wow, is really, something's wrong with her. Something's very wrong with you, Anne. Anybody supporting this woman, well, there's something wrong with you too. Very sick. But when you have a society and the majority in that society think, feel, their viewpoints, their opinions, they're all on the same page, then you have a majority who all support one another in your sick, twisted, deranged thinking and living. You all think you're right, when nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. How the adults cannot see what is happening to James here is truly a testament to how sick and deranged adult Americans are. And it does seem that the courts are on the side of the mother, not the father. And do you know that this mother is actually trying to force the father to pay for all of the medical procedures? And the courts may very well go along with that, forcing him. The court actually forced the father to not cut his hair. I think that may have been reversed, but can't cut his hair. You can't be a father. See, fathers, their job is to protect the family. So here is James's father trying to protect him. That's his job. It's not seen that way anymore. Now, his father is deemed abusive. The only possible way any of this can be reversed is if our voice trumps the majority voice. You need an awful lot of people with an awful lot of courage to stand up to all of these people who are sick and deranged and creating a traumatized society. And, well, that's the, outside of that, we're just going to be watching. We're going to be watching more and more. More and more destruction, more and more child abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, physical, and it all becoming, hey, it's legal. Not moral, but it's been made legal and I get to do it. Wow. Very dark time we're living.